Hear me. Start off with, because I'm a loud mouth. My students tell me that, and I believe it. And I also wander, because moving target's harder to hit. But I do have to stay fairly close to here so I can be forwarding this one. But as long as everyone can hear me, if you can't, just tell me and I'll put the mic on. First, I want to thank you all very much for being here, and I thank the coordinating committee, the organizing committee, for asking me to speak today. This is an area that has gone to a real passion. In the last 2 years in particular, I've just developed an absolute passion for urban food production. We can do so much more than we are. We've come a long way, but we can do so much more. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about, basically, if it all works well, the overview. This is not a how-to. I'm not going to talk about putting seeds in ground. I'm not going to talk about weeding. I'm not going to talk about the how-tos. This is what is the potential? What can we do out there? Follow that by definitions of urban agriculture, the definition of bountiful. We'll talk a little bit about food security, and then basically a lot will just be on how can we do, what can we do to create a more bountiful city. So the first thing we need a drive. We need someone, some organization, or a bunch of organizations to start driving this forward. Well, guess what? They're here. They're already here. A lot of them are in that trade show out there. There are a lot of organizations. A year ago, I called collectively I called my granolas, my friends, who are kind of urban food people. I got them together for a meeting. And I thought, well, it's going to be hard to get a bunch of people together. Well, it was 20 organizations I had in one room. And that's when I realized, there is a lot of people who are involved in urban food production already in this city. This is phenomenal. This is fantastic. So the drivers are out there. They exist. And you know who one of those drivers was? Not for my purpose, but for one of the people who's really driving urban food production in North America? Michelle Obama. She has done a lot towards urban food production. She said, I've seen far too many inner cities. I've seen far too many people who are hungry. I know how to garden. She grew up gardening, and she sees people who can't. And that has bothered her. So she has done a lot towards teaching people, promoting urban food production. Now you recognize the picture. That is a takeoff of, and who designed that picture? Who is the painter of that picture? Thank you very much. It's the truth. That is the truth. Every so often I get an email saying, cool picture. I go, thanks, dude. I have no talent for drawing, trust me. That's it. So we have a cause. That's one thing we need. We have a cause. What is the cause? Why do we want to grow more food in Saskatchewan? Why do we want to be more bountiful? For me, it's the food bank. If we were a bountiful city, then there is no need to have a food bank. Because we have a food bank, that is the reason why we need to grow more food. Because we should have enough food for everyone in this city, available to all. And until we do that, then we need to have more food being produced in the city limits. We've come a long way, and we have a long way to go yet. But we have made tremendous strides in the last 5 years in particular. So what is urban agriculture? Urban just means a large area, heavily, densely populated area, cities, towns, villages. That's urban. So what is agriculture? Agriculture, basically, there's a gazillion definitions, but it's a production of crops and of livestock for the purpose of food, fuel, fiber, and other products. I put food first because agriculture is about producing food. That's what we do in agriculture, is we produce food. So let me just ask you a few questions about agriculture and food. Are vegetables food? Well, yeah. Okay, so are fruits food? Well, yeah, that's obvious. So is wheat food? Not everyone knows that. Is bread food? Well, yeah. There's a disconnect between the wheat and the bread. A lot of youth don't know that wheat is made as bread. So when we ask our youth what they think of, or what do you picture when you say the word agriculture, they automatically, the first thing is the big tractor. That's agriculture. And it's also the big fields with lots of big equipment. That's agriculture. Yes, that is what agriculture is, but it's more than that. What about agriculture? What about the large fields of pumpkins, the large fields of carrots, the large fields of strawberry, the large fields of potatoes? That is also agriculture. It's producing food, but a different kind of food. So what's the difference now between that and the carrots in your home garden, the potatoes in your community garden, the pumpkins in your home garden, the strawberries in your home garden? The only difference is scale. So if you grow any of these things, at all, you are involved in agriculture. And a lot of people say, no, agriculture is something different. No, if you grow these crops, you are involved in agriculture. I'm introducing a degree course at the university, and I've called it Urban Food Production. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be open, ready for registration for this September. And the reason I didn't call it urban agriculture is because of marketing purposes. To 19-year-olds, they see agriculture. No, I don't want to see big tractors driving in the city. No. If you're producing food, it's agriculture. But the word agriculture means different things to different people, but everyone knows what food is. So I've called it urban food production. We will talk about vegetables, fruits. We'll talk about aviculture, beekeeping, livestock. We'll talk about the social aspects of it. We'll talk about the nutrition aspects of food. We'll talk about the agronomic practices of food. Well, all that will be addressed, but it's called food. And once I get them hooked, then I will say, by the way, guys, you're taking agriculture, studying agriculture. And that's how we convince the youth what agriculture is. Many of our youth are now 3 or 4 generations removed from the farm. It was Grandma and Grandpa who lived on the farm. Grandma and Grandpa bought that bag of potatoes, that sack of potatoes, those pails of carrots when they came to visit. Youth nowadays, a lot of them have lost their connection to food. And that's what we want to try and get going. That's why I'm bringing this class into production. Food is community, and community is food. Think about it. When you socialize, is food involved? We're socializing today. Is there food involved? Yes. When you hang out with your buds, what do? Where do you go? You go for coffee and have a donut. You go to a food shop. When you go to someone's place for a visit, they always offer you food. Food is community. You cannot separate the two of them. When you meet someone from a different culture or a different country, you talk about food. When you go to Folk Fest, do you eat at the pavilions or just watch the entertainment? You eat, because culture is food. So food is culture, and food is community, and community is culture. You cannot separate the three of them, and that's what makes agriculture and food so enticing, is because they are all together. We need to appreciate food and celebrate food, because food is more than nutrition. Food is a lot more. It's a fiber that we are built on as a culture. That is what food is all about. We need to assign a much higher value, a much higher appreciation of what food is. And if you want to find out what appreciation of food means, talk to someone who stood in the food line to receive their ration of food. 20 years ago, I was in Ukraine, 6 months after the breakup of the former Soviet. We stood in line to get food because you couldn't buy it anywhere else. You were given a certain ration of food. That is, you get a whole different feel of what food is when you haven't got it. So you need to have an appreciation of what food is. Roughly 10% of what we spend on our income is spent on food. Only 10%. That's much, much, much higher in a lot more countries. Many countries, you're spending half your income on food. We have a cheap food policy in Canada. The cheap food policy means that food is readily available to everybody because it's cheap. Well, is food readily available to everyone? No, it's not. And that cheap food policy is preventing farmers from receiving what they should receive for their products. So something is broken and we need to fix that something somewhere along the way. We spend a lot though on housing, clothing, transportation, and other. In particular, other. We spend a lot of money on other things. We conform to the social influence, what society says we need, what society says we should have. Instead of spending it on food and appreciating food, we're buying these other things. So what do we need? We need, so we need to change attitudes more than anything else. Food security. What is food security? It's talking about having sufficient food on a day-to-day basis and availability of food and access to food. Access being you have the physical and the economic ability to get that food. Are there people in this bountiful city who don't have access to food? Yes, there are. And that is a problem, and we need to change that. As was pointed out a couple of weeks ago, or last week at a conference I was at, the food summit, the one lady said, don't point fingers, don't yell at each other. That's simply a waste of time and a waste of energy. You sit down, you listen, you learn, and you offer suggestions as to how to solve those problems. That will take us forward. And that's what we need to do. Urban agriculture is urban food production. We need to grow more food, and we can grow more food within the city if we want to make it truly a bountiful city. Okay, so what would a bountiful community look like if it was based on food? What would be in that community? Who would be in that community, and how would the food be produced? Here's my dream. This is my pie in the sky. There's my community. First and foremost in my community is the school. Everything revolves around the school, our youth. The decision makers next 10 years are the kids who are in school right now. If we do a good job of informing and educating our youth, then we're far better off than if we don't do that. We have to be conscious of the education of our youth because they are tomorrow's decision makers. So in my school, it's going to be an edible school. Back up one. It's going to be an edible school. There's going to be a greenhouse in that school. There's going to be fruit trees, and there's going to be fruit shrubs in that school. There's going to be cooking and nutrition classes. Every student in that school is going to know how to cook. I know kids who can't even boil water. That is a serious, serious problem. We need our youth to be able to cook for themselves and feed themselves. And there's going to be lots of hands-on time in the garden. The agriculture, the food production is going to be incorporated into the curriculum, and it's going to, every kid is going to know how to and physically be able to garden, to grow their own food in that school. That's what my school is going to be. We're also going to have a playgrounds, and we're going to have parks in that area, and that's for the kids to play with, and that's for the community. When kids are involved in sports, they're working together, that's building community. When the kids are building community by playing together, the parents are there, and we're socializing. That's building community. Food is community. So we have to have the parks and the playgrounds so that everybody can come together, the gathering place for the community. There's also going to be the community center. That's going to be the other gathering place for us. And in that community center, there will be cooking classes. There will be gardening courses. There will be festivals, and there will be gatherings. We are going to celebrate food. We're going to enjoy food. We're going to talk about, we're going to produce it, we're going to cook it. We're going to celebrate food in that community center. Naturally, there's going to be a compost site. And that is the community association run compost site. If you have excess grass clippings, which you're not using in your own compost bins, if you've got leaves, which you're not using in your own compost bin, then you're going to drop it off at the community association run compost site. And then that will be distributed around the community. There will be stores, lots of stores. And those stores are going to sell food, they're going to sell products with a local flair, if at all possible, but not restricted to local fare. So there's going to be lots of stores, but emphasis on the local and emphasis on food. I've run out of space, so I'm going to just keep going. There's more to my community. School, again, is always going to be there, no matter what. That's why I left my school there. We're going to have a farmer's market, naturally. You have to have a farmer's market, where farmers can sell directly to the consumer, or the community shared agriculture programs can sell directly to the consumer. To put the consumer in face-to-face contact with the producers, so you can see the face of the person who's producing your food and hear their story. Because the face-to-face contact is celebrating food, appreciating food, and appreciating the work that that person put into producing that food for you. There will be restaurants, and those restaurants will be serving food with a local flair. Not just local flair, but that's part of what they'll be doing. It's hard to find restaurants who serve a Saskatoon-based Saskatoon flair. What is a Saskatoon-based, what do we eat here? Well, we need to establish that, and that will be part of what we're doing. There's going to be food carts in the summertime, and these food carts aren't selling hot dogs. These food carts are selling local and ethnic food. So on Monday, I'm going to grab a enchilada. On Wednesday, I'm going to stop by and grab a big bowl of borscht. And on Friday, I'm going to grab a bowl of chana dal. So it's all ethnic and it's all locally produced, and those are available in the food carts. That big circle is now that circle. So in my community, there's going to be lots of housing. And that housing, there'll be fruit-producing street trees and trees around the yard. There'll be a single housing, there'll be multi-dwelling housing. Every home will have a garden spot. Every condo, every apartment, every townhouse will have a garden spot. If not right on the site itself, right beside the site. So you've got a place to park your car, and right there you've also got a garden spot. Everyone will have access to producing their own food. There'll be lots of bike stands, and there'll be easy access to the hub of the community, because that's where the life of the community is, that first big circle. We'll have community fruit harvest. So that with all these fruit trees out there producing fruit, if you don't want your fruit, you phone the community association, they come, they harvest the fruit, and that's donated, that's sold to someone, so that you can buy your apple sauce, you can buy your apple crisp, you can buy your apple cider made from fruit that came off of your tree that you didn't want. The local fruit will be used in this community. We will have a youth senior gardening program. There is going to be a tremendous number of seniors in the next 15 years. They're not all going to move into seniors' retirement homes. We don't have that many, and we don't need to build that many. We need to keep the seniors in their homes as long as we possibly can. And one way of doing that is having the youth garden for the seniors. Check on them every day. Make sure they're fine. If you don't think they are, you talk to the community association, and they'll look after that. The youth will learn how to garden from the seniors. The seniors benefit from having the youth come by and garden in their spot. That program, we're actually talking with a group right now about doing that. And there'll be a share backyard program. If you don't want to garden in your backyard, and somebody else does want to use your backyard, then you make arrangements for them to use your yard as well as their own yard. Entrepreneurs will be doing this. We have them in the city now, where they rent out backyards and they make a living out of growing vegetables in the city limits, within city limits. That is my community. It's a bountiful community in terms of food, in terms of culture, and in terms of community. So that's but that is a community of the future? What about the communities, our existing communities? Can we make our existing communities more bountiful? And I say yes, we can. Bountiful in terms of food and bountiful in terms of community. We can do what Cuba did. Everyone holds Cuba as one of the, if you want to see a success story, Cuba's it. Well, it's the truth. I mean, it's, and a colleague of mine just got back from Cuba, and she brought back a lot of pictures. Unfortunately, I was going to slap them in here, and I forgot them at the office, so sorry. But it is an absolute phenomenal story. In 1991, the former Soviet dissolved. The breakup of the former Soviet Union was 1991. Cuba imported well in excess of 50% of the food they consumed within the country was brought in from the country. Less than half the food, way less than half the food consumed in the country was actually produced in the country. Sounds familiar? Canada's not that bad, but okay. They imported their food from the former Soviet Union. They're not a wealthy country. So what happened? Break up with the former Soviet, all imported food was cut off. The people in Havana were hungry, they had to do something fast. Imagine going to Walmart, Superstore, Safeway, Sobeys, whatever, and finding that any imported product, any imported food, fresh food product, not produced in Canada, wasn't there. I'm not talking half the oranges aren't there, half the grapefruits aren't there, half the bananas aren't there. No. We're talking anything imported is not there. No oranges, no grapefruits, no bananas, no. What is there? Okay, there's some cabbage, there's some potatoes, the carrots, there's probably some onions there. What else is there? Some greens, turnips, rutabagas. Yeah, and that's about it though. We import a lot of our food. Imagine if something happened that we didn't have that. We need to do something, they need to do something, and they need to do it fast because the people were starving. So they implemented a urban food production program where they were using any vacant lots, they used any public lands that are available, and they greatly expanded their rural production, agricultural production. And what happened within 10 years, they went from being dependent to being 90% plus self-sufficient in food in a 10-year period. They're fully self-sufficient in most crops now. From dependent to self-sufficient in 10 years. And a lot of that food, a great deal of that food comes from the city, produced right in Havana. It's a success story and it's possible. Yes, I absolutely agree that the context within Havana, Cuba is different than the context in Saskatoon. And we cannot do exactly what they did. But we can go a long way towards getting there. Here, Mexicans at the farm, they butchered chickens, they cleaned chickens, and they put them in the deep freeze. Youth nowadays pop that frozen thing out of a bag onto the barbecue, and that's as close as you get to working with raw product. There are potential problems